Hey YouTube, I have the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Do I like it or not? We'll find out. Once again, my name is Julian with Juleon Tech Reviews. And as I mentioned before, we're going to dive into the iPhone 16 Pro Max and explore this foreign world for me. Even though I've had an iPhone in the past, I've been an avid Android user. So I decided this year to buy the iPhone 16 Pro Max and deliver you this review, my personal opinion on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But with every single video, we are going to start with the specs. And before we get into that, if you can please like and subscribe to this channel, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all your subscriptions. But without any further ado, let's get into the specs. So what do we have here? We have the iPhone 16 Pro Max. This is the Desert Titanium. This starts at a price of $1,199 up to $1,599 for the 1 terabyte version. And it comes in 4 colors. It comes in a black titanium, white, titanium natural, and a desert titanium. And let's talk about the display. So the display is an LTPO Super Retina display with 120 hertz refresh rate, 2000 nits of brightness, 6.9 inches of the screen real estate, a ceramic shield glass on the back, and then it has the Corning made glass on the front as well. On the back, it is a titanium frame, so it's got a grade 5 titanium, and it has always on display. It has IP68 dust and water resistance. It weighs in at a whopping 227 grams or 8.0 ounces. And it uses the platform iOS 18. I've already updated to the latest and greatest. It has an Apple A18 Pro chip, and it has 256 gigs with 8 gigs of RAM. So I have the 8 gigs of RAM model, and that runs through all of the models. Let's talk about the camera. So we start with the camera. There's 3 main cameras. It has the ultra wide, it has the 48 megapixel wide angle, it has a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto up to 5 times optical zoom. It has a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and it shoots up to 4K at 120 frames per second. And let's talk about this selfie camera. So the selfie camera is at 12 megapixels wide angle camera with 4K up to 60 frames per second. This features Bluetooth 5.3 with Face ID, accelerometer, gyro, proximity, compass, barometer, ultra wideband support, and emergency SOS messaging, and Find My iPhone via satellite. The battery is a lithium-ion 4,685 milliamp battery, and it wirelessly wired charging up to 50% in 30 minutes. And it does a MagSafe technology, which is 25 watts on MagSafe charging, up to 15 watts on the Qi 2 wireless charging, which is somewhat new, and then a 4.5 wired reverse wired charging. So with all those specs and features, does it compare? What are the pros and cons? Well, let's talk about the design. So one thing about going to the iPhone, and just a quick brief history, I've had the iPhone, the last model was the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And I had it for a year, and I decided to give it up because I wanted to get back into Android and most of the customizations and all of the things, multitasking that was available for Android at the time. I wanted to get that type of phone and that type of activity with my phone. So this is just kind of new to me, coming back to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And from the design, it hasn't changed that much. So the design of the iPhone 16 Pro Max is pretty much the same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which some would say is a little boring. However, coming back to the 16 Pro Max, it does feel premium, and it feels, really easy in the hand. I had no issue getting back to, Apple and all of their, closed service and software. But the hardware, it's just hands down, one of the best hardwares phone for hardware in the world. But there is little changes on design. So from my recollection, there's always been a dedicated switch here to turn the, silence on and off. However, this is now a button. So when you push the button, you can change the actions of this button. But for now, I had to change to a silent ringer and a, unsilent or turn off the ringer. So like the traditional iPhone. And then also they've added this dedicated camera button with some sensitivity when you push the button. So for instance, if I open up the camera and I slightly push down, up comes a menu, and you can just slide your finger as you're pressing down, not too hard, of course, because it'll snap the picture, and you can cycle through the various menus. So if I wanted to change the exposure, the focal, the zoom, I just select the option down here, the tone, and then I can select the tone, and then I can slide left to right. So I appreciate little changes like that because it makes the phone, very, sought after. And some might think it's just not like that much of a deal, but those type of changes do make a difference. And then also just the animations on the volume. I mean, there are some, slight animations whenever doing the volume. There is it looks like you're pressing into the phone. The software is reading your feedback when you press it. So I think that was pretty cool. And pretty much, the camera module has been the same. I do like the desert titanium. I was going to fall in love with it when I saw it, but it has this kind of like pearl, reflection here, and you can just clearly see it. And I use a clear case, so I want to see this desert back, in the aluminum frame here is kind of a golden, but it's not like a rose gold. So I just, kind of like floated towards this design as for anything. But for the most part, Apple hasn't, reinserted any, jacks for your audio. So that's still, present on the iPhone. But one cool thing about the design now is Apple uses a USB-C. So now all of my Android phones and anything that I have Android is not for nothing. So I can just slip in a USB-C cord and it will work like a charm. So thank you for that, Apple. So the design has changed a little bit, but not significant. So, all right. With that being said, the design and feel and everything that goes into the iPhone 16 Pro Max, let's talk about the pros and cons. So the pros for me is going to be heavily geared towards features. So one of the best features that I didn't see on the iPhone 13 Pro Max that I see now is the dynamic island. Now on the dynamic island, you can essentially utilize this bean shape to do certain things for you. For instance, if you get an Uber Eats app, what this does is create an animation that tracks the Uber Eats, tracking, and it lets you know, when that, tracking has occurred. And also, if you're watching YouTube, and let's say you wanted to go into another thing, we're multitasking, you can either do it this way where you have the picture in picture, or if you're listening, or if you want to, have a sound or some kind of like iPod on podcast, you can see the animation here, and you can even tap it to see that it's still going, or you can change the options, and then you can just send it back or go to the, place, but it'll be sitting here until you're done with it. So very cool, the dynamic island. Another thing that's interesting in this phone, which is a pro for me, is the customizable icons. So customization is a big thing in Android field, and we know that with iPhone, there really wasn't as much customization. But now they've introduced in the iPhone iOS 18 customizable icons. So for instance, if I want to go to customize it, you can do a light, dark, or you can do it automatically, or you can do it tinted. Now with tinted, it's essentially similar to the Android version of it, where you can, create a monochrome look for your apps. Now, the one good thing about doing it on Apple is that most of the apps are set up for, as you can see, here's the result. Most of the apps, the developers set up, coincide, and they do it quickly. So most of these apps are going to be tinted. Now, there are some that are not going to be tinted, but for the most part, companies seem to gravitate more, who create apps, more with Apple, and there's a lot more faster updates. So you're going to get the latest and greatest update on your phone with an Apple. So that's a great pro. And the next thing I want to talk about is the standby mode. So standby mode is when you have your phone on the charger and it's placed on its side, and it brings up this calendar clock, alarm clock type vibe, and you can highly customize it whenever you're, just going to sleep and you have it. So I have my trusty iPhone and I have a stand. So we're going to plug in with my USB-C, which is another pro. You can use the USB-C. Okay, so I'll plug it up and then automatically the standby mode is on. Now, this is very cool because you can customize it. You can just kind of swipe up. You can either put your child's picture on there with the alarm clock. You can just create it with a monochrome color here, gradient color. And then you also can switch the clocks. You can, see the stock market. You can put the calendar. I mean, there's just so many things you can do on this, and this is very, very good. And then you can even go to, maybe you're looking at a song and you can look up the actual album cover. I mean, hands down, this is one of the best features on the iPhone. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to stay in the on the apps, is the app movement location. So now, whenever you're shuffling your apps, it's not necessary for the apps to, rearrange and go back into a nice form. You can actually move apps in different locations and not have any automatic sorting. So that's kind of been a feature on Android, but Apple's finally got it. So it's very, very nice. All right. And then let me go back to customize this back to a normal looking phone. There you go. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about as a pro is the battery life. The battery life is crazy good on this phone. I was very blown away with the battery life. It has been one of the most surprising, best features on the phone. You literally charge this thing and it's at 100, but throughout the day, I can literally go pretty much all day without charging. And that's unheard of for Apple. And I'm so glad that they've decided to optimize all the software on this to make it great, because it doesn't have a big battery. It's only 4,685 milliamps, which is not as big as other phones, but this is very, very nice. And I can say that's a huge pro. The next thing we're gonna talk about is MagSafe. So MagSafe is absolutely great. I didn't think I needed MagSafe for this because I can just charge this wirelessly, or I can charge this with USB-C because I got so many. But using the MagSafe, I mean, I'm going to show you in the future videos some of the accessories that I picked up for the MagSafe, but it is very, very nice. You can literally clip anything with a magnet on here and it'll be useful, and it doesn't fall off. So, kudos to Apple with the MagSafe technology, because that is also caught on with Android phones. As you see in my previous videos, or just, some of the cases where you can get like a MagSafe strip and put it on there. That technology, is very, very nice. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is the camera. So the camera is a definite pro. Now, it's not the best camera when it comes to just super high resolution quality, but as far as the activity of snapping and taking a picture and videotaping and the potential to make movies, it is awesome. And an iPhone will never, I guess, it won't be the instance where there won't be a great camera on this phone. But with all that being said, there are cons to this. So I'm coming from an Android, I'm coming from Google, I'm coming from Samsung. Customization is key for me. And it is not as customizable as Android, but it is getting towards that, direction. So I'm gonna cut it some slack there. So just putting that out there as a, frivolous con. Also, there's no true multitasking. Now, earlier I showed you that YouTube, you can run a video. You can run a video and then you can have picture in picture, but that's pretty much it when it comes to multitasking. Or you have the dynamic island where if you get a call or any type of media that turns on and you go to your home screen, it'll show up here in the dynamic island. It's very cool, but not multitasking what I'm used to, being able to be productive and have great productivity, sideways and, each way. And even just in the home screen, I can like turn it sideways and landscape, but no multitasking, thorough multitasking. And another thing is just the lack of innovation when it comes to the design. The design has been the same for, the last 4 or 5 generations. They've updated some of the hardware, it looks good. There's some small features, but at the end of the day, it's the same iPhone look, and some would say it'd be boring. But that's just gonna be a con for them because we have to see something different after 5-6 years. And then another pet peeve is, I have all these recents here and some of them sit there, until I actually move it. But there is no clear all recents like I do with like, Samsung, for instance. But I mean, they find quick ways for you to, just kind of move the recents out. But it's just a little nuisance when it comes to, trying to clear out everything and making sure that you have only 8 gigabytes of RAM to, run the phone. But it doesn't really take away from the performance. It's just annoying. And I would say the last thing is just kind of like a pet peeve coming from Android to Apple. Whenever they say they're coming out with something, they usually have it day one, but Apple has announced that they're gonna have AI features, but it isn't here. And the phone has been out since September, the 9th. So if they're getting to the point where they're not giving out what they've been, claiming or promising, that's just kind of annoying. But all in all, the phone experience for the iPhone coming from an Android user has been great. And it is really easy to get back into the game. They have Move to iOS app where you can transition from an Android to the iPhone. And I showed it on my previous video on my unboxing. And you can take a look at that right here. So it's really easy and simple. And I think this phone is a keeper, to be honest. If you do have an iPhone 12 through 16, you may consider upgrading. But leave the comments below. Let me know if you're going to upgrade to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, or you're just going to keep your phone and wait for an iPhone 17 Pro Max. But this is Juleon with Juleon Tech Reviews. And thank you for joining me in my video and my journey into the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Thank you.